Catherine, thank you very much indeed. And could I start by saying what a huge pleasure it is for me as Chief Executive of the British Council to be here at this seminar today, and in particular to meet up with old friends, particularly Madam Xu Lin, who we've worked incredibly closely over many years together in the development of language training, both English language training in China, but also, of course, Chinese language training here in this country. And I would like to start by saying how incredibly grateful we are to Hanban and to the Confucius Centre for the support they give to language training here. It is genuinely important. And one of the things I hope to develop over the next few minutes in my speech is why it is important for us to develop a strong and robust system of learning Chinese and learning about China here in this country. Now, as you may know, the British Council is now in its 5th year as strategic partner of the London Book Fair, and we've worked in a wide consultation with other official partners, industry professionals, experts in the field, and on research over a number of years to develop the 2012 market-focused cultural programme. And having worked and lived, as you've heard, in China for a very large number of years, I've got a deep personal interest in this year's market focus and incredibly proud that we are partners of the London Book Fair in making this meeting possible. I'd also like to say a big thank you to GAPP and to the Chinese side for working as partners with us on this and bringing such a distinguished group together. Now, our purpose in the British Council is to create international opportunities for the people of the UK as well as other countries, and to build trust between us and people in other countries. And we've done that through, over the last 75 years, through education, through the arts, and most importantly, through the English language. We passionately believe that the ability to work effectively with people from different cultures and different backgrounds is critical to the long-term prosperity of our own country, but also to wider prosperity across the world. Language and our ability to speak the same language, both metaphorically as well as literally, is key to making international relationships work. If you're going to have a dialogue, you have to be able to speak to each other. If you're going to speak to each other, you have to be able to speak the same language, whether that is a linguistic language or the languages of science or the arts or education or sport or one of the other ways in which we communicate. But language and linguistic language is absolutely central to that. And in recent years, the economic rise of China and that continued demand for English, it seems to us that a discussion on Chinese as well as English language teaching and publishing has never been more important. Language, we know, can divide us, but by promoting two of the world's leading languages, I believe that Chinese language teaching and English language teaching publishing can help to bring us closer together, building understanding and ultimately trust, not just between the UK and China, but more widely. Globalization has dramatically transformed the economic, political, social, and linguistic landscape. We live in a world that is increasingly international, where people and jobs are increasingly mobile, and where our ability to operate internationally is more essential than ever before. Now, international experience and cultural fluency are invaluable assets. And by cultural fluency, I mean both linguistic fluency as well as fluency in understanding of people from other cultures. The benefits of being able to communicate in foreign languages go far beyond the development of linguistic competence. Language learning is an essential component to preparing young people for life and in developing responsible and informed citizens who can contribute to the economic prosperity of their country. There is a distinct economic imperative for learning global languages. There is also a distinct cultural imperative for learning global languages. And all too often when we talk about language learning, it starts from that economic imperative, the ability to trade or to do business in other languages. But also critically important for us, I believe, is our ability to appreciate literature from other parts of the world, to understand great writing from other cultures, to immerse ourselves in another culture in a way which allows us to communicate effectively. Even if you don't speak the language fluently, you can speak the culture more fluently, and that's a critical point for us. At the end of last year, we commissioned Think Global to survey 500 businesses and explore the importance employers here in this country place on international skills and experiences. The results revealed that, in fact, businesses think highly of these skills. According to the survey, 75% of business leaders fear that the UK economy risks being left behind unless the next generation of recruits gain those indispensable international experiences and skills. And some of you may have seen the British Chambers of Commerce produced a report only at the end of last week reiterating exactly those same findings. British business needs people who can speak other languages, who can engage with people from other cultures, and we need them desperately, quickly, now. And preparing young people for life and work in a global economy is undeniably important, and the learning of modern foreign languages forms a significant part of this preparation. For many governments around the world, this has meant a radical rethinking about education and language policy and planning. There's pressure right around the world for improved levels of language fluency, and in many cases this has prompted a move towards more integrative methods of teaching and learning, as well as the exploration of the use of English to teach subjects such as science and maths. Many countries in Asia, Europe and Latin America are already experimenting with teaching one or more subjects through English, through the pilot programs and national initiatives. The British Council has been working recently both with the Madrid Comunidad in Spain on the development of bilingual schools, and more recently with the Bogota city education authorities in Colombia to do exactly the same thing. And the pressure on us to develop means of supporting bilingual or education are increasing year on year. So no longer for countries looking at studying English purely from the sense of English as a foreign language. Increasingly, they are looking at it as a medium for education itself. And that, of course, brings with it a whole host of controversial education education controversies, not least at what point do you move from mother tongue learning through to learning in another language. Also, for us, government ministries of labour, ministries of employment, ministries of skills development are all planning the skills needed to be competitive in a globalising economy. And all of them see language competence as one of the key areas that they wish to develop. Now, we at the British Council need to find how to respond to governments and schools around the world in meeting that extraordinary expansion in demand for English language teaching abroad, as well as the teaching and the quality teaching of modern languages in schools here in the UK. And I'd just like to give you a few ideas of some of the work that we're doing. For us, teaching directly is a key and important part of what we do around the world. So running schools, teaching now in about 100 centres and teaching 300,000 students around the world is an important part of what we do. And it's important for two reasons. One, because it gives us credibility in this area, an ability to talk about it effectively. But secondly, it builds the partnerships, which are critically important if we're going to be able to extend the learning of English and respond to the demand that's placed upon us. But teaching 300,000 students, however a significant number that is absolutely minuscule compared with the overall demand. At the moment, it all depends upon who you speak to, but the latest statistics I was given actually only this morning is that 1.5 billion people are learning English somewhere in the world at the moment. In China alone, the Chinese government, actually the minister very proudly told me this only yesterday, the estimate is that 300 million students are learning English in China, greater than the total population of the United States. So language learning is critically important. Even India. Too many people in this country believe that India is an English-speaking country. It's not. Only about 10% of the population have usable English language, and a population of 1.2 billion. We are working with the Indian government on training 500,000 teachers of English for India, because English access and access to English is going to be a critical component of meeting aspiration, both family, individual, as well as social aspiration in that country. So direct teaching itself, important, but nothing like enough to be able to meet the demand and expectation there is. And the second critical element for us must be engaging with the public education authorities in countries which are looking to build language competence, because it is only the public education system which has the capacity to meet the demand and expectation there is in those countries. And supporting the development of English language teaching through the public education systems right around the world seems to us to be critically important for the future. Central to that has to be the role of the teacher. And teacher training and supporting teacher training and teacher education is critically important. We estimate that there are 10 million teachers of English around the world. We also estimate, and this isn't just a made-up figure, that that is about 50% of the total that is required. Ministries around the world tell us that they expect to need 15 million teachers of English at the moment, and that figure will grow. Just in Mexico alone, Mexico has something like 24,000 teachers of English. The Mexican Ministry of Education estimates that they need 75,000 to meet demand today. So meeting that extraordinary explosion of demand through the development of proper teacher education systems is a second critically important part of what we need to do. The third is also building teacher networks, because for many teachers it is a very, very lonely road that they are following in developing new, more effective, communicative approaches towards language learning within very often very traditional education systems where innovation and change is not widely welcomed. And so teacher-to-teacher networks, building the opportunity for teachers to communicate with each other and build confidence in the development of new education systems, again, is a very important element of what we do. And working through our online networking sites, we now have something like 1 million teachers with whom we're engaging around the world in building both in-service as well as pre-service language learning opportunities, but also that networking which is so important for them to be able to be effective. And then the final area I'd like to mention is the opportunity of online learning and the development of self-access online learning systems right around the world for individuals wanting to supplement and develop their own learning. For many of us, that inevitably has to be free to the end user approaches, but equally all of us, I think, are looking for ways in which we can develop learning systems and learning materials which have an economic component to them as well. And that is, I think, a real challenge. And increasingly, there is the move towards blended learning, so that learners starting from the digital end of the spectrum are looking for a face-to-face or at least a person-to-person engagement. And people working within or learning within the face-to-face environment are looking for constant supplement to that learning through digital and other means. So a much more dynamic and I think exciting set of opportunities for learning of English right around the world. In order to be able to do any of this, the British Council is a mere drop in the ocean of the capacity to be able to take this forward. And for us, being able to work in partnership with other language learning organisations, with the publishers, absolutely critical if we're going to be able to meet anything like the demand that there is around the world. So no organisation on its own will ever be able to meet the expectations that there are. It is only by working together, I believe, that we'll be able to meet that demand. I've spoken about English language learning, but I'd also like to talk about Chinese language learning, because the rise of China is universally recognised as one of the most significant geopolitical events of our time. Everybody knows that China is now the second largest and the fastest growing economy in the world. And it's certainly no coincidence that our largest operation for the British Council is now in China. We have had offices in China since 1943, and more this year, more than ever, we're looking forward to a multitude of Sino-British exchanges. But China isn't simply an economic event, or the rise of China is not simply an economic event, it is also a cultural event. The importance of China's language and culture has risen in tandem with its economic and political power. And we need to ensure that we have the capacity in this country to understand China in completely different ways from the way in which we have traditionally thought about it, if we're going to be able to meet the expectations of both our young people, but also of business, in being able to engage properly with that country. Just look at the massive explosion of Confucius Institutes around the world. There are, I believe now, I'm sure Madam Xu will correct me, 350 branches on university campuses alone. The number of students enrolled in the language classes is increasing by almost 40% a year. We, in the British Council, took something like 70 years to build 100-odd centres around the world. Confucius Centre has taken, 5 or 6 years to build 350. I think we have some learning to do. And Chinese language teaching will undoubtedly become an important market for international and Chinese publishers alike. The case for cultural relations with China is exceptionally strong because it builds ties of mutual familiarity and benefit that are aligned with our national interest as well as theirs. Language and, more widely, cultural relations help bring the people from the UK and China closer together. There's a huge appetite in this country to learn more about China. Chinese studies are more and more popular at UK universities. There are about 3,500 UK students now studying in China at the moment. That compares with, it depends who you ask, and just this week I've heard figures of 80,000, 90,000, 120,000 Chinese students studying in this country. Don't tell the visa authorities about the 120,000, but the mismatch is enormous, even though we proudly say that the proportion to population is roughly the same. That, frankly, is not a good enough argument. We clearly need more British students studying and understanding China and in China. But also students are more interested in studying in China. And more people obviously want to learn the language. We estimate now that 1 in 14 UK state schools in UK here is now teaching Chinese. Over the past 10 years, we have been placing Chinese teachers in UK schools to equip tomorrow's generation of Mandarin speakers. And we're enormously grateful to Hanban and to the Chinese Ministry of Education for all the support they give us in helping find those teachers of Mandarin. But it isn't good enough for us to rely upon teachers coming from China. We have to be able to grow our own teaching cadre of people able to learn and understand and teach Chinese if we're going to meet the expectations we have. In exactly the same way as it is no good a foreign country looking to a British Council or any other British organisation to meet the demand, it's no good for us here in the UK looking to China to help us meet the demand. We have to do more here to build our own capacity to meet the demand. Demand is increasing and continues to increase. The UK, in conclusion, is one of the most globalised economies and societies in the world. I think the economic indicators show that we are probably second or perhaps third most globalised economy in the world. And that means that international schools are more important for us and for our prosperity and growth than for virtually any other country in the world. And today's world, those skills must include an understanding of China, of Chinese, and of Chinese language. And both these national, economic and political circumstances, the expectation we have here on learning more about China and the demand in China for developing a greater international outlook which requires English, those two sets of economic and political circumstances are directly reflected, I believe, in the world of Chinese and English language teaching publishing. People want and need to learn more English, they want and need to learn more Chinese, and people want and need not just the books, but all the additional materials through which to be able to do that. So the time is ripe for participants in the global language marketplace, including publishers, to consider how to cooperate in practical ways. With demand and need so high, our publishers can and should be able to collaborate more. Of course, on course design, on localization, on marketing, distribution, supply chains, there's a wealth of experience that the two of us are able to share and much to be learnt from one another. And it's my sincere hope that out of not just today's seminar, but by making China the market focus for the London Book Fair, we're going to find ways of developing this even further. It's very much in our interest as a country, but also, I believe, in the interest of China that we learn to collaborate in this area. Thank you very much indeed.